Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Politics. It is my hope that you're fine wherever you are. I'm also okay. Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever wondered what could be going on between one Rigathi Gachagua and Fred Matiangi? Because honestly, there seems to be a beef between them, politically speaking. Fred Matiangi announced his candidature not so long ago that he would be interested to vie as the president of the republic. The first people who expressed deep suspicion were led by none other than Rigathi Gachagua. Rigathi Gachagua has expressed his suspicion of Fred Matiangi from petty actions to really serious accusations. Remember when they were going to have a meeting in Western, a Meet the People tour? I think Netembea was the one who organized the tour. There were two posters that were shared widely on social media. One was produced by DCP. And in this DCP poster, Fred Matiangi was missing. That was not a mistake. That was deliberate because Rigathi Gachagua was showing his distrust for Fred Matiangi. It was that bad that Natembea had to do another poster that now included Fred Matiangi. Rigathi has accused Fred Matiangi of two things. One, he is barely shouting wantam. And he has not joined him in insulting Ruto from morning to evening. He expected Matiangi to be doing so. And so, because Matiangi looks reserved when it comes to attacking the president, even during his interviews, Rigathi is persuaded that Matiangi is a mole being used by William Ruto. And the fact that Matiangi has refused to form his own political party to come to the bargaining table and instead is using Uhuru Kenyatta's party, these are the things that Rigathi Gachagua is adding and concluding that this is a mole. And this is not just some imaginations of mine. Rigathi Gachagua has not hidden how he feels about the decision of one Fred Matiangi to join Jubilee. The same day Jubilee was having an NDC, National Delegate Conference, Rigathi, Martha, and others decided to also have one for Martha's party. And in that particular meeting, Rigathi said that William Ruto was using certain people to divide the opposition. In fact, he said that there are people that he trusts that will never betray the opposition. And he counted himself, of course, Kalonzo Musyoka, Eugene Wamalwa, Natembea, and of course, Martha Karua. He never mentioned Matiangi. And if you doubted what he wanted to say, you just listen to what his so-called deputy party leader, one Cleophas Malala, had to say. Malala said, and I quote, that William Ruto was using Uhuru Kenyatta and of course Matiangi to divide the opposition. That Jubilee that was having a national delegate conference was a red wheelbarrow. Now, if you say those are circumstantial, those are just circumstantial evidence. You don't have something that shows that Rigathi Gachagua is specifically not happy with one Fred Matiangi. Then let us go to the sentiment of his very close allies, one Nyuto, senator from Murang'a, and Dhangwa, the senator of Kiambu. They said, ladies and gentlemen, and this is not once, they have said this in public and in interviews, that there is no way Rigathi Gachagua can struggle to finish Ruto only for Matiangi to come and inherit. Remember when Matiangi announced his candidature, the people who cheered him on were the so-called Gen Zs. And like I told you, the so-called Gen Zs are mostly Kikuyu youth. And so Rigathi felt like he had done a lot of work only for Matiangi to come and inherit his sweat. He was never happy. And he has always shown that he doesn't like Fred Matiangi. But ladies and gentlemen, here we go beyond the superficial. That is what you are seeing. What could be the real reason why Rigathi Gachagua seriously hates Fred Matiangi? What is going on here? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is what I'll try and answer in this video. If it is a topic that interests you, continue watching. And if you do find value in our videos, ladies and gentlemen, just spare a second and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to like this particular video and share it with your friends. Like I was saying, ladies and gentlemen, what we have been looking at are the reactions, the symptoms. So what is the cause? Why is there a beef between Rigathi Gachagua and Fred Matiangi? I think it is twofold. In my opinion, there are two reasons why Rigathi Gachagua is not very happy with Fred Matiangi. One, we go back before elections. You remember Rigathi Gachagua became very vocal, politically speaking, a very vocal person. And he would really attack Uhuru Kenyatta. He made certain allegations that other politicians would have not tried to do. But he accused Uhuru of everything you can imagine. You know Rigathi Gachagua. He is a loose talker. He doesn't have control. He can say anything. As long as he hears a crowd that cheers him, Rigathi Gachagua can speak anything. And so he really was going personal with Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta then used state machineries to go after Rigathi Gachagua. He singled him out. And during that time when Rigathi Gachagua was being harassed by the state machinery, one Fred Matiangi was the minister in charge of security. He was the internal minister. Fred Matiangi was then in charge of the police because the police only had their budget and in the financial independence under William Ruto. Before then, they were depending mostly on the Ministry of Interior, ladies and gentlemen. So Rigathi believed that the humiliations, the Friday arrests that he had to go through were things that were done to him by none other than Fred Matiangi. Now you may be like, but Rigathi Gachagua was begging Uhuru Kenyatta for forgiveness. Uhuru Kenyatta bore the ultimate responsibility because he was the president. So if Rigathi was to be bitter with someone, it should be Uhuru Kenyatta because it was Uhuru Kenyatta who was the president. The war was between him and Uhuru Kenyatta. Well, I told you, he never genuinely apologized to Uhuru Kenyatta. All he wanted was that after he parted ways with William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta was supposed to play in his corner because if William Ruto got to Uhuru Kenyatta, then Rigathi Gachagua was going to have challenges. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, he was begging and calling Uhuru Kenyatta our king and saying, oh, you warned us, we didn't believe you. Moving forward, nobody's going to attack Uhuru. As long as I'm still here, no one is going. He said all this not because he liked Uhuru or because he had forgiven Uhuru or because he was remorseful. No, I've told you. He was trying to quote Uhuru. He was trying to get Uhuru's backing so that Ruto cannot get it. Because if Uhuru Kenyatta is going to go head to head with Rigathi Gachagua, while he may not get majority of votes, he will dent Rigathi's control in Mount Kenya. And that is what Rigathi was trying to avoid. But as far as Rigathi Gachagua is concerned, he believes that Fred Matiangi was individually involved in harassing him and dealing with him. That is why he was very happy when Fred Matiangi, after elections, was having some issues here and there. In fact, as far as Rigathi was concerned, it should have been pursued to conclusion, meaning Fred Matiangi should have also been put in some cell somewhere or should have been jailed just as a revenge. Rigathi Gachagua is a man who believes in revenge, getting even. So this thing, ladies and gentlemen, goes back to before the 2022 election. That is the first reason. He believes that Fred Matiangi tortured him, humiliated him, harassed him when Fred Matiangi had power. And so he feels like there is no way he can participate in helping Fred Matiangi to have power. As far as Rigathi is concerned, he would rather have somebody like Kalonzo Musyoka get his support than Fred Matiangi. That is one reason. One reason is historical differences, meaning Fred humiliated Rigathi when he was in power, and Rigathi feels like it is time to get even and also humiliate Fred Matiangi. The second reason, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, has everything to do with their character, their personality. Fred Matiangi's ego is from here to Timbuktu. I don't know if you could remember how he used to address William Ruto, who was then the deputy president. Fred Matiangi would be called to parliament to answer some questions, and he would assign William Ruto names, including sympathy addict. He has an ego from here to Timbuktu. He is a very difficult man to control, especially if he has power. He has the belief that once he has power, things need to be done the way he wants. And he doesn't care about protocol as far as he feels he has power. Immediately, Uhuru Kenyatta gave him some responsibilities. Fred Matiangi didn't have any shame going to welcome Uhuru Kenyatta. I know you remember those pictures of William Ruto standing so that Fred Matiangi can go and greet Uhuru Kenyatta and then do the introduction. He doesn't care. That is Fred Matiangi for you. He has an ego, and he is very rude and arrogant. That, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly who Rigathi Gachagua is. So these people, in terms of personality, they are the same. No one can control the other. Rigathi would love somebody who is timid, somebody who he can blackmail, somebody who he can threaten, somebody who he can literally control. And ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you here that he can't control Fred Matiangi. If it is a matter of Fred Matiangi taking orders from one Rigathi Gachagua or from anybody, he would rather not vie. And that is why when he was asked today about the differences in the united opposition, he said that it takes time to bring people together and he will not take his time and attack other people. For him, he didn't see that Rigathi is his match in terms of people he should exchange with. Intellectually, he is ahead of Rigathi Gachagua. That is granted. The man has a PhD. Rigathi Gachagua doesn't. And so he also believes that as a professional, he's done better than Rigathi Gachagua has done. So he feels he's not in the same league. That way, Rigathi Gachagua cannot give him orders, cannot control him, can also not dictate how he does his politics. And so you understand Rigathi's reservations. Rigathi is looking for somebody to control. Remember his rule. The presidency may be in Kisii, maybe in Luyaland, maybe in Kambani, but the title deed will be at Munyoro. That is what he said. He said he has millions of votes and is going to trade these millions of votes for control. He wants a situation where whoever he is going to support is going to take orders from him. He is going to be ruled by him. Actually, Rigathi would be the president behind the president. And they can't get that from Matiangi. Those are the two reasons why Rigathi Gachagua is not very comfortable with Fred Matiangi. But there is one that I could add as a bonus, the Uhuru Kenyatta factor. Remember Uhuru Kenyatta, I told you in this video earlier on, the reason as to why Rigathi Gachagua was apologizing to Uhuru Kenyatta was not because he likes Uhuru Kenyatta or because he feels remorseful. He wants Uhuru Kenyatta in his corner. Why does he want Uhuru Kenyatta in his corner again? Remember, for two things, money and to consolidate his hold on Mount Kenya. If Uhuru Kenyatta is supporting Rigathi, Rigathi has serious hold of Mount Kenya, especially rebels from Kiambu might end up listening to Rigathi more. Uhuru Kenyatta, who Rigathi has been begging, calling, oh, our king, I don't know what, that Uhuru Kenyatta now supports Fred Matiangi. So you can understand the jealousy. Ladies and gentlemen, just as a recap, we were looking at the real reason why Rigathi Gachagua really doesn't like one Fred Matiangi. And if you must forget everything, don't forget these three reasons. The first reason is their past. Matiangi used to be a very powerful government official. In fact, he was the CS in charge of Interior. During his reign, ladies and gentlemen, one Rigathi Gachagua really suffered. he would be arrested in the most humiliating of ways and be detained for days. And Rigathi Gachagua is yet to forgive Matiangi for that. That means, deep down, he wants Matiangi to suffer. And so he will not be very comfortable endorsing Matiangi and helping him achieve certain things. The second reason is their character, their personality. Both Rigathi and Matiangi are cut from the same cloth. Even though Matiangi is reserved, he is only reserved when he is not in power. Matiangi and Rigathi are both arrogant and have egos that stretch from here to North Pole. So, Rigathi wants somebody he can control, and that person cannot be Matiangi, because Matiangi also looks at Rigathi intellectually is ahead of him, professionally is ahead of him, so he doesn't see any reason why he should be subservient to one Rigathi Gachagua. And that doesn't work for Rigathi, because remember, Rigathi insists that whoever is going to endorse must be taking orders, must be bending the knee, must be taking orders from him. And Matiangi cannot. And of course, the third reason is the Uhuru Kenyatta factor. Uhuru Kenyatta is somebody Rigathi desired to be in his corner. That is why he was moving from one place to the other, begging Uhuru Kenyatta, apologizing and calling him his king. He did all this because he needed Uhuru Kenyatta to be in his corner, to help him galvanize Mount Kenya, and of course, the money. Now that Uhuru Kenyatta is supporting Matiangi, Rigathi Gachagua cannot be happy with Fred Matiangi. I hope you got value in this video. If you did, let me know in the comment section below. Let us engage. Let me hear what your take on this particular topic is in the comment section. Otherwise, if you have not subscribed, just take a second, subscribe to the channel so that you're notified whenever we produce videos of this nature. And again, if you have not liked this video, please like it and share it with friends. Otherwise, in case you're wondering what political options one Fred Matiangi has moving forward, watch this video.